You know, ain't it warm in here? Well, good afternoon, everybody. And I'd like to start by saying how proud I am of the British people, and how proud I am that voters have chosen democracy over political domination, liberty over overarching control, and freedom over fear. From a defence point of view, I'm also proud that due to the British people's determination, the UK's armed forces no longer face the threat of being merged into an EU army, over which we as a nation would have no control. And what a lucky escape we had. Within a week of the referendum, the EU's Foreign Affairs Chief, Federica Mogherini, published a delayed document that called for further merging of the state's armed forces. But now is not the time to rest on our laurels, as Brexit is only one aspect of securing and rebuilding Britain's military capabilities. Following years of betrayal, mismanagement and underfunding, we now have a complex task of once again giving our armed forces the best tools to protect this nation and its interests. While November's Strategic Defence and Security Review addressed some of the issues raised in the 2015 UKIP manifesto, promising £170 million of armed forces investment over the next 10 years, it has in no way healed the deep wounds caused by SDSR 2010. And there are still many questions for the UK's armed forces moving forward. These include issues such as failures in recruitment, manning and retention rates, addressing living standards in forces accommodation, continuing to re-equip our military to meet future threats and challenges, and the replacement of Trident. In regards to Trident, we could see a vote in Parliament before the upcoming summer break. However, due to this being overseen by an outgoing Prime Minister leading a split party and the Labour opposition in utter chaos, I feel a vote of this importance should be held once we have regained some political self-control. Not to do so risks further tainting an already controversial issue and leaving it open to further challenge at a later date. On the issue of Trident, UKIP's position remains unchanged. In my opinion, it is more critical than ever that we retain our nuclear deterrence as a cornerstone of our defence policy. Also controversial and in need of immediate clarification is the suggestion that defence spending commitments I spoke of earlier will need re-examination due to Brexit. I sincerely hope that this implied threat to the UK's defence budget is nothing more than one of the last vestiges of the Project Fear we saw throughout the referendum campaign. With a mounting number of international and internal security threats, most notably the continued rise of Daesh and the growing aggression between several NATO states and Putin's Russia, we now, more than ever, need a properly funded and equipped military. I will therefore be calling on the next Prime Minister, however she may be, to commit to the defence spending proposals made in the SDSR 2015, together with meeting NATO's 2% of GDP spending target. I would also like to take this opportunity to reaffirm UKIP's support and commitment to the NATO alliance, which has acted as the true peacekeeper in Europe since the end of the Second World War. In defence, as elsewhere in government, the referendum result has caused waves. We know from former First Sea Lord of the Admiralty, Lord West, that civil servants at the MOD were running around like headless chickens as they hadn't been allowed to consider a post-Brexit plan. However, looking to the post-referendum future, I would like to state that our independence does not and should not mean military isolationism. While our vote for Brexit secures our armed forces against the threat of further military union, we can in no way afford to turn our backs on our traditional military partners in Europe. Britain has a duty to continue playing its part in the security of Europe. And this can be achieved by being a powerful, yet independent entity as both a bilateral partner and as a member of NATO. And that is why I echo Lord West's words in saying that our first step should be to immediately reassure our allies that the UK is not seeking to renege on or roll back our defence commitments, particularly to NATO, or to withdraw from our vital role as a bridge between the United States and Europe. However, with that said, I will today reiterate my recent call for Britain's armed forces to be immediately withdrawn from the EU battle group rotation, the latest round of which started at the beginning of this month. I find it totally unacceptable that despite our vote to leave the EU on 23rd of June, British troops still have the potential to be put in harm's way while commanded by the totally unqualified EU Commissioner for Foreign Affairs. And speaking of repatriation, I sincerely hope that once free of the EU shackles, we can make sure that British steel is used to build British ships, British tanks, and British vehicles for our armed forces. For too long, our national defence industries have been forced to put out to tender in the European Union defence procurement contracts that would have supported and developed British industry and workmanship. Again, this does not mean isolationism, as I believe many of the joint projects we have participated in have led to a range of highly capable equipment, especially in aircraft construction. But when we participate in the future joint projects, we need to do so as an independent actor with full control over our own requirements and budgets. The fact is, what is needed now is a clarity of political direction, which is something we have not always had in the past. While much of this speech is concentrated on the future of our armed forces, I think it would be remiss of me not to address the recent past, especially with the publication of the Sir John Chilcot's report on the Iraq War this week. For me, the majority of the blame for the calamitous decision to involve the UK in the 2003 invasion of Iraq rests with one man, the then Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair. In the wake of the Chilcot report, Blair's legacy will be one of a man craving power and influence over caution, advice and common sense. Sir John paints a damning portrait of Tony Blair as a manipulative man blinded by his own self-importance, who became nothing more than a lapdog to a US administration desperate for military action. Especially damning was Sir John's conclusion that the war was not one of last resort, as peaceful operations for disarmament had not been exhausted. However, Blair's failures in no way absolves the responsibilities of those MPs who voted for the war. It was the MPs' duty to research properly the UN's reasons for not backing military action. And it was their failure to do so that led to the UK's armed forces being condemned to 7 years of hell, for which they were under-equipped and not adequately supported. Each and every one of the people involved in taking this country to war in Iraq should hang their heads in shame. They have failed both the armed forces and the British people as a whole. But I'll bet a week's wage that not one of them resigns in disgrace. The catalogue of failures highlighted in the Chilcot report also raises further questions. A lack of post-war planning, equipment shortages, lack of cultural understanding, and the political will to ignore expert advice all contributed to an untenable situation. And that is why this report cannot be disregarded. We must never again find ourselves in the same position, and we must take seriously the lessons spelled out in Sir John's report. The fact is, despite Blair's protestations, the 2003 Iraq War heralded an era far more volatile than what had gone before, especially with the emergence of the groups such as Daesh. And it is with this legacy and in an increasingly unstable security environment that we as a nation must once again find our feet as a strong, independent nation. Thank you very much. Are you announcing, Dave?